the lobby, they'll know your name. But all beautiful things come with edges and thorns, and the body you borrowed is starting to look kind of warm. So I stand back and I watch us fall as we break everything inside this hotel walls. Lost for rent and it called us out. So I hand back the key as the doorman bows. It just screams in the universe. I'll let that comfort me when I'm anxious. This life is beautifully ugly at times. We're just screams in the universe. I'll let that comfort me when I'm anxious. This life is beautifully ugly at times. It's 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 beautifully ugly at times. So I stand back and I watch us fall as we break everything inside this hotel walls. You know the last for rent and it caught us out. So I gave back the key as the doorman bows.
Since I came to know you, baby, I've been telling you how sweet you are. I've been telling you how good you are. Now I want you to try to tell me how I look. Tell me, tell me, tell me, tell me, tell me, tell me, please tell me how I look.
You look so good, fantastic man.
Mic check, mic check. All right, welcome everyone out here tonight. We do have a raffle going on. Everyone here gets a free raffle ticket. Come grab your free raffle ticket from Avery over here. We're giving away some skins. Skins from Gear 30. Get your raffle ticket. And then Brandon Everett will chat rescue here in just a minute.
to know you, baby. I've been telling you how good you are. I've been telling you how sweet you are. I've been telling you how lovely you are. I've been telling you how nice you are. Now I want you to try to tell me how you look. Look at me, baby, look at me. Look at me, my girl, look at me. I want you to try to tell me how you feel about me, babe. I want you to try to tell me how I look. Tell me, tell me, tell me, tell me, tell me, tell me, please tell me how I look.
You look so good, fantastic man.
All right. Reminder, just get your free raffle tickets. Those of you here at B Street. Thanks, everyone, for coming out tonight. Garrett 30 is giving away some skins. One ticket winner right over there. One ticket winner. That's what we're talking about.
Hey, good evening, everybody. Let's go ahead and get started here this evening. Thanks, Michelle. Hey, so everybody hear me in the back okay? Matt, you got me? Perfect. All right, good evening, everybody. My name is Brandon Everett. I'm a patroller up at Powder Mountain. This is the Nicole, third year of this. Third year, last talk of the season for the speaker series. So if you guys remember the first session, we talked about weather with Nicole. And then the second session, we had a bang up talk. I believe that was on snowpack with G.R. Fletcher, the legend G.R. Fletcher from Snow Basin. The talk after that was Ben and terrain. And last week, the human factors talk and the accidents talk was done by Corey Davis. So this is the last one in the series. This one we're going to talk about rescue. For those of you guys that have been here in the past, some of the stuff's going to sound really familiar, but I'm going to go into a little bit deeper dive onto some stuff that a not well-known accident here in the Wasatch, the northern Wasatch, over in the Cutler Basin area. So let's go ahead and get started. So if you guys take nothing else out of this presentation tonight, I think the biggest thing that you can take from here is companion rescue is the number one chance for you guys out in the backcountry, surviving an avalanche. Obviously, there's other things that go into that, but companion rescue is the number one. So if you take nothing else out of this, have your beacons, have a shovel, have a probe, have a buddy, practice your equipment, and train like you fight, and take the opportunity to practice with that stuff and get. And then that way, when it comes down to it, and you need to rescue your partner, you're confident and prepared to do so. So, going to go through a couple other little pieces. How many of you guys know what a reco is? There's a new dog at Powder Mountain. Its name is Reco. I'm not talking about Reco the dog. I'm talking about that little microchip thing that's inside, sewn into pants and boots and jackets these days. Sometimes helmets. Recos don't replace avalanche beacons. They may be great if you're in a ski area and that's all you ever do, but They don't really help you find anybody. They just help people, trained professionals, find you. And so definitely want to preface this with, recos do not replace beacons. Spot locators aren't beacons either, but they're part of your rescue plan, and that's an important part we're going to talk about later. And I like to always say, if you're going to go past that red sign, or if you're going to go out in the backcountry on your own, you need to have a plan. You have a plan that starts with how you're going to get there, where are you going to do when you're there, how are you going to get back, and who knows where you're going, right? Even more importantly, there should be a plan for the worst, a plan for what happens when your buddy gets a broken leg, or if you get caught in an avalanche. You need to have a plan for what's going on. The plan should be dependent on some factors: weather, the time of day, snow conditions, those type of things. Those are all parts of our plan. So having a good well-rounded plan and including a plan to do something in case something bad happens. So as we're going forward, you're out touring with your buddy, you're taking backcountry laps next in adjacent to one of the local ski areas. And the next thing basically we're going from here is the worst has happened. So what happens next? So if you have a buddy that gets caught in an avalanche, you should expect 4 things, right? You should expect to have to do some kind of medical care to them. From something as easy as a finger sweep of snow out of their mouth to maybe having to do CPR on them or have to do some kind of medical care to stop bleeding. So in the US, number 1 cause of fatalities in avalanches is trauma. If you go to Europe or you go up to Canada where they ski above tree line a lot of times, it changes. It goes to asphyxiation because you typically don't worry about hitting trees up in those areas above tree line. So, but here in the US, our number 1 fatality cause is trauma. So being able to take care of that trauma-related injury. The next, like I said, plan on having to pull snow out of their mouth. Treating for hypoxia or asphyxiation is going to be the next step forward. So actually, I actually talked to some guys that went down and talked with a gentleman. His name's Manuel Ginschwein down at Snowbird the other day, and a couple patrollers from Powder Mountain. And they've been doing some research, and hypothermia is not actually a large contributor to avalanche fatalities. It's something that you have to take into consideration for long burials, but really hypothermia is not as big of a thing. But if you get stuck in the backcountry for a long period of time waiting for a rescue, hypothermia is going to be an issue. And then obviously the last one, and the one that comes to mind, most recent incident that we've probably all heard about, is the Mill Creek Canyon accident last year, right? Where obvious signs of trauma, obvious signs of death coming from some of those people that were buried, friends, backcountry ski touring partners. That's a hard thing to deal with. Not everybody's going to be able to be mentally able to handle that stuff, but being able to maintain your composure to do what you need to do to get all the people out is going to be ultimately a huge piece of success for the people that are still under. So going into what we have for a plan. So in order to work through this system, in order to work through the problem, we got to have that plan. So what's your extrication plan? How are you going to get out of there? Even if it's a broken leg or a broken arm or shoulder or whatever it happens to be, how are you going to get out of there? Maybe just a binding failure. You need to have a plan on how to get out. There's a lot of really cool tools in the Wasatch. We'll talk about them in a little bit. But these helicopters are a great option. But if it's a no-fly day, it's a no-fly day. They can't just fly because you're hurt. So, how do you contact help? I'm going to show a slide in here in the next couple minutes. You guys will be able to take a photo of it. It has a bunch of phone numbers on it. How to contact help. That's a big piece. It's not always going to be 911. Okay. Do you know where you are? If you're setting up a backcountry trip plan, you're probably going to know where you're going and where you want to go. But there's a lot of place in between from where you start and where you end. You need to know where you're at. How about your family and friends? How many of you guys, if you go touring out in the backcountry, you go plan on doing backcountry laps adjacent to the ski area boundary, how many of you guys let your partner, your spouse, or somebody know where you're going for the day? Even if you're going to just go ski at the resort. Hey, I'm just going to go ski at the resort for the day. How does everybody let their folks know? Okay. How many times does your plan change throughout the day? Okay. Think about that. Does your plan change throughout the day? Maybe I'm going to go take a quick trip through Hells. Maybe I'm just going to go take a trip, anywhere adjacent in in the side country or back country. I hate the word side country. I'm trying not to use it. But any of the backcountry terrain adjacent to the resort. Your plan's going to change throughout the day based upon things. Are you letting people know where you're going? That's a big key, especially if you're skiing or riding alone. So how do you get out? That's a really hard one. A lot of us we're not prepared to be able to self-extricate somebody. And so even more so than how are you going to get out is how are you going to make somebody comfortable? Do you have the basic stuff to start a fire, or do you have the basic stuff to keep yourself comfortable for several hours until help arrives? How long does it take you to get out while you're in a good, everybody's happy and healthy? You can times that by like 3 or 4. If everybody's happy and healthy, you take that, times it by 3 or 4, and that's going to be how long it's going to take you probably to get out on your own without help if somebody's injured. So keep that in consideration. Do you have medical supplies and training to treat a serious injury? I wouldn't say you necessarily need to have, everybody needs a pocket mask and trauma bandages and all that kind of stuff, but some very simple, lightweight things can help take care of a lot of different things. And so having those basic medical supplies to take care of an injury if you have something is helpful. And then do you have what you need to spend the night? Been on a lot of not recoveries, but a lot of situations where we were unable to get into the victim, and the victim had to spend the night. One of the most recent ones I can remember is an individual traveled down the backside of Strawberry into Birch Creek Canyon. They ended up having to spend the night. So do they have the basic stuff? Can you start a fire? Can you hang out for a little while by yourself and make it through the evening time? So if you need to get help fast, this is the key. This is a key piece in this. You guys coming in, you guys can come up and come around, no big deal. If you need to get help fast, there's a few things that you're going to need to have, and you're going to need to be able to relay to people that can get you the help that you need. Your location, your exact location is best, but everybody's got a cell phone these days, right? How many of you guys ride with your cell phones when you're out ski touring, right? Pretty much everybody is riding with their cell phones. So that's a really good way to get your location and get that location to the people that need it to come find you. So knowing how to get that location is going to be super important. If you don't know how to get the location off your phone, Google it. I'm sure you'll figure it out. Do you have cell phone service? That's a big one. Wasatch, down to the central Wasatch, there's cell towers all over the place. The northern Wasatch, up where we're at, maybe a little less frequent, but you're going to have pretty much cell phone service most of the places you travel here on the Wasatch. So that's going to be super helpful. What are you wearing? How do you stand out in a bunch of trees? Are you wearing a green jacket and you're standing at a bunch of trees? How easy is it going to be for people to see you? We're going to go through, I've got a couple slides here that are going to show you how hard it is to see people from the air when they're wearing even a red and black jacket. So bright colors versus natural colors, it's your choice. You choose what you want to ride in, but it makes it easier to see you if you're in bright colors. Patient info, some very basic patient info to give to 911 is going to help get you the right treatment or the right care faster. So your age or the age of the patient, their sex, the mechanism of injury, or what happened to them, how they got hurt. Are they bleeding? Can you stop the bleeding? And did they lose consciousness? Those are some very easy things that you can give to a dispatcher that's going to prep that life flight person or prep search and rescue to know what kind of situation they're getting themselves into. Current and expected weather? Yes, Ben.
So age, mechanism of injury, right? That all makes sense. But why is sex important?
Male or female, okay? There are potential things with being a female patient. Maybe that 911 dispatcher asks you if the patient is male or female, that might spur some questions like, is there a chance that patient is pregnant? Because there's a whole bunch of other things that come into play if you're female that could potentially change the kind of care that you would be receiving. Does that make sense? Cool. Current and expected weather. We all know riding in the Wasatch, riding in the mountains, weather's constantly changing. You'll have a clearing 1 minute, and 5 minutes later, you're socked back in with clouds, and it may not be for another hour till you get good weather to be able to fly. So, especially if you're worrying about flying, or if you're looking at an overnight stay, knowing what kind of current and expected weather you're going to have to be dealing with it is important. The helicopter may not fly if there's heavy smog in the valley. That's just a fact of reality nowadays. If we're expecting or currently have snow or some other weather factors, helicopter may not fly. I think the biggest thing to take away out of the piece about what the weather is let the helicopter people decide if the helicopter can fly or not. Make the call, ask for help, and they'll find you a way to best get you the treatment or the help that you need. So this is a good slide to take a photo of if you want to take a photo of a slide. This is our wonderful partners over at Snow Basin with their Avalanche rescue dogs. And there's a bunch of phone numbers off to the side that could help get you help in the future if you happen to need it. So obviously 911 is the go-to, right? 911 is going to get you the fastest, most reliable piece. But these phone numbers are even more important than just getting help. If you happen to be riding in the Snow Basin area and you're in Hell's Canyon and you trigger an avalanche in the toilet bowl or someplace like that, and nobody was caught or carried or buried or injured or hurt or anything like that, a courtesy call to the Snow Basin Ski Patrol is going to save them a lot of time and effort and potential risk of their patrollers going out and looking for somebody who could potentially be buried. So these numbers are not just for calling in to get help, but also to let folks know that that everything's okay. So same thing down in the Central Wasatch. Alta Central is your phone number to call. So, and if you're in the Provo Area Mountains, Sundance Dispatch. So, everybody good? Sweet. So when we talk about rescue, everybody expects a couple things. When I talk to folks that they've either had to call for help or they need to get help, they expect a couple things. And a lot of times what they say, well, a helicopter's going to come and, all these trained medical people and all these really good skiers that can come and help me, and they're going to put me in a toboggan, they're going to take me down the hill. That may not always happen. It may just be 1 or 2 or 3 people that come and help you. You may not get the helicopter. You may have some guys being towed behind a snowmobile, or you may get a bunch of snowmobilers up to help you for search and rescue. So don't always expect the cavalry. This photo on the right here is an old grainy photo from the 90s. We're going to talk about this incident in a little bit. But that's a group of volunteers. A group of volunteers that don't get paid to do what they're doing, that come out to come help people when they're in distress. So, and then the photo there on the left, or I guess your right, is a photo from the Taylor's Canyon Avalanche recovery in 2005. And that's a culmination of effort. That's folks from WBR, Alta Snowbird, and Snow Basin in that photo. And so it takes an army to make this thing happen. When ski resorts are pulling patrollers out of their staffing to come respond to accidents like this, that's decreased staffing that they have at the resorts, and so that's a big thing. So in the Wasatch, we are really fortunate to have at our disposal some really awesome medical resources. And special medical resources in the form of helicopters. Lifelight, they're based out of McKay-Dee Hospital, AirMed based out of North Davis, Air Care based out of Ogden Regional, all really solid, top-notch programs. Lifelight is a particularly particularly an awesome program with the hoist. Air Care has a couple of their special, really cool things they have with their programs. And they're within a 10 to 30 minute flight typically from pretty much anywhere in the Wasatch, even up to Monte Cristo. We also have the Department of Public Safety, or UHP helicopter, that's available on standby most days. They run a hoist platform too. They're extremely busy these days. A lot of rescues going on down to the Cottonwoods, down in the Sundance, Provo. They even fly all the way down to Moab to do rescues in Moab. So they have a really awesome program too with the hoist. They can use day or night. And they also have a long-range transceiver and RECO system out of their helicopters. So really awesome program, really good group of folks to work out of there. And then I list here on the bottom 1 to 3 hours out, because it takes time for us to get together. And especially for the search and rescue folks, a lot of those folks are at their normal day jobs, working at Thiokol or working wherever they work. It takes some time for those folks to get off of work and to get out to go help somebody that needs help. So definitely extended time frame, but the patrollers and the search and rescue folks provide a wealth of knowledge, including dogs, recos, explosive handlers, those type of things to come help you if you need help. So, any questions on any of that stuff so far? Great. So, as a really good example, if you happen to see, you guys have probably all seen these flying around. That ship on the left-hand side, that's the Augusta 109, the Life Flight flies with the hoist. AirMed there, that's actually EC-145 that flies out of Park City area. It's a rear-loading helicopter. They don't load through the sides. And then the two ships here on the bottom right, those are the Department of Public Safety Highway Patrol helicopters, the A-Star B3s, both. And one of those ships has a hoist platform. I think the other one now does as well. That particular photo is down in Moab. We're going to see a video here, I think, next from a recovery they had 2 years ago down in Moab that these guys were a part of. So, yep. So we'll let this video play through. This is one of the really cool things the helicopters can do for us. We have the ability to use explosives out of the helicopters to make the area safe for the rescuers. So one of the things that we go through as rescuers basically the first thing we have to look at is make sure the scene is safe. If the scene is safe, then we're good to go in. If the scene's not safe, then we need to do what we have to do to make it safe so that we can go in so we're not creating a bigger hazard or more people injured or hurt or killed. So I'll let this play through real quick. I'm not sure where the sound's going to be. Hopefully it doesn't blow us out.
Oh my God.
Wow. So this is down off the Manti Sal's outside of Moab. I believe it was a snowmobile triggered avalanche that caught, carried, and buried an individual 2 years ago, just outside of the Castle Valley area, kind of going into the Castle Valley area. So this was a multi-day event. They had folks go in, throw in explosives, and then they had come in with several dogs from another resort.
They only needed one
and
shot.
And went through and
That's
picked
how
up.
sensitive things
We're able
are
to find
in
this person
the
buried in the
South.
snow, kind of over. I believe they were kind of right over here off to this side over here. So we have to go in and make it safe, and sometimes that's why it does take so long. That we'll talk about that in the case study that we're going to go through. But that's an important part for us to make sure we're not doing any additional harm to any of the folks that are there. So going to do a little deeper dive here with the helicopter. So a couple key things for the helicopter show is helicopters don't bring backboards. They bring a litter. They might come with some stuff to help, like this bag here for the hoist system. That's called a Bauman bag. It's what you put people in to get them out. That's how they hoist people out. But you need to be able to be in an area where they can get to you readily easy. If you're stuck in a bunch of really tight trees, you're probably going to have to pull the patient out of there. Those are all things you can do to get you help quicker. Life Flight and Department of Public Safety hoist systems. So the big thing between those two is Life Flight comes with medics. The Department of Public Safety folks are not guaranteed to have an EMS trained person. They are search and rescue only, not medical related services. So keep that in mind. DPS has the Reco and the long range receiver, which I mentioned already. A lot of people, when I talk about helicopters, they ask, well, how do I talk to a helicopter if I don't have a radio to talk to them with? One easy way to do it is you're going to go through 911. A lot of times you can tell 911, and you have to remember there's going to be like a minute delay. You can tell 911 that you can see the helicopter about where it is in reference to your position. And then you can, if it's at nighttime, taking your cell phone and holding it to the sky with just the screen lit is a really good way to show them where you're at. Really easy way to show them where you're at because they all have night vision goggles on. They can see really well with that. So just remember there is a delay if you're talking through the phone. Another thing a lot of people don't recognize is, this service that they provide comes with a cost. Your gear stays. They're not worried about your gear. They're not worried about your brand new skis or any of that other stuff. They're not worried about your backpacks. Your stuff stays. So get it all cached up in a nice location for it to spend the night or to spend a couple days until you can go back up and get it. But your gear stays. And then day versus night. Big consideration. Nighttime hoists are really, they're super dangerous and they're very high risk. And so if you're planning on getting hoisted at night, make sure you're in a nice wide open area if you can be, so that they don't have to put themselves at undue risk. So how do you help for an efficient, fast and efficient rescue? Don't put yourself in harm's way. The helicopter comes and lands on the ground next to you. Okay, don't go standing up and running over to the helicopter. Just stay where you're put. They'll come talk to you. Stabilize the patient the best you can. If that's getting an airway and making sure they're breathing, that's good. If you have to continue to do CPR, continue to do CPR. Okay, don't deflect to get that helicopter there, to land the helicopter. They're going to land. They know how to do that. That's why they're employed to do that stuff. Keep focusing on the patient, but make sure they know where you're at. So a suitable LZ, or a suitable place to land, is basically for a helicopter to land somewhere, it needs to be like 100 by 100 foot circle on average, and relatively flat terrain. So what's relatively flat? If you can slide on it freely with your skis, it might be too steep. So that's a really good point of reference. If the snow is really deep, take the time to pack the snow out around where the helicopter would land. That way the helicopter can come in and land safely and efficiently. And then I steal this from my summertime work. This is one of our 10 standard fire orders. It's good: be alert, keep calm, think clearly, act decisively. I think it fits really well into this rescue piece because if you're aware of what's going on around you, it allows you to be calm. Being calm allows you to think clearly, and thinking clearly helps you to act decisively. So take that little tidbit. That's like a pearl, I like to call them. So any questions on rescue stuff? Anything that we covered? That's a review from a lot of stuff that we've covered in the years past. I want to take a little deeper dive now into not a real well-known accident that happened in 1995 up here in the Cutler Basin area. How many of you know that the first avalanche-related snowmobile deaths were in Cutler Basin? Sweet. Then this should be a really good learning opportunity for pretty much 98% of the people in here. January 14th, 1995 was the first snowmobile-related avalanche fatalities in the state of Utah. Hard to believe it, but they were right there up on the Cutler Basin ridgeline. So let's go in and talk about it. I'll explain to some of the pictures here. This is, anybody identify that ridgeline right there? What is it? Hogsback? Cutler Ridge. There you go. We can use the backcountry ski map names, or we can use the common terminology. I like common terminology. For those of you, all right. I like to name a lot of things at the resort, and people don't know what they are, but I know what they are. That's all that matters. I talk to myself all the time anyways. So, what's that? Where's the roost? I'll show you where the roost is tomorrow. So, so Cutler Ridge here. This is with Cutler, basically the Cutler Ridge Trail, the summer trail. If you come across here, there's a bunch of switchbacks, and eventually you get the big switchbacks that take you up to Ben Lomond Peak, right? Everybody know where we're at? Yes. Okay. Our focus area is going to be this area right here. Hey, Ben, what is this called? I'm not going to say it out loud. What is it called on the map? Bailey Cabin Springs. All right, so I'm going to catch a little bit, give you guys caught up to where we're at. So we're taking a time warp back to 1995. It's around 11 o'clock in the afternoon. 4 snowmobilers left the North Fork parking lot and went for a ride up the Cutler Basin area. It was 4 males, anywhere the age of 25 to 30. I don't remember what each one of the ages is. It doesn't really matter. Other than I point that out because if you guys, how many of you guys have taken a basic avalanche class, like a level 1 or an avalanche awareness? Okay, that category right there is what? It's I wouldn't say reckless, but they're high risk. That's why our insurance is high when we're young. But that's a high risk area, right? That's a high risk age group and a high risk demographic, right? So I'm going to point out some of these things because I'm betting that there is maybe 30% of the room probably fits in this category in some portion of it. Probably 70% of this room fits in the male category. So a little bit of weather stuff from the Google machine and some folks that I've talked to that were a part of this rescue or this recovery. They've had prolonged northwest winds ahead of the storm that came in, and we had rain, 40-degree temperatures in the Ogden Valley for several days prior to that, rain and new snow several days prior. So a couple things you throw out of there. If you think back to Corey's talk last week, and he talked about the 5 red flags, recent snow, warming, winds. So we're getting some of these pieces already, right? The group of 4, they did not have beacons, shovels, probes, or any other rescue stuff in the group. One person had a cell phone. I remember my dad's cell phone from 1994. It was about a little bigger than this microphone, and it had a long antenna on it. But they had a cell phone at least, right? But there was no beacons, shovels, or probes. Okay. The news story, if you Google search the Cutler Basin accident 1995. It'll take you there. You'll find a link in there from the avalanchecenter.org. And there's a bunch of news articles from the Standard Examiner, the Salt Lake Tribune, Deseret News, those folks out there that tell you a lot more about this particular accident. But one of the things that said in there was none of them had any avalanche training. I can't confirm that, but that was one of the things that was in there. You also think about back in 1995, avalanche training probably wasn't really readily available. It was there, but it probably wasn't super available. And probably neat beacons, shovels, and probes. I remember my first beacon, I got it was probably late 90s, early 2000s. And it was really difficult to use. It wasn't super easy to use anyways. So the 2 snowmobilers, were riding, or 2 snowmobilers basically were working through the terrain in 2 separate groups, 2 groups of 2. The 2 buried, or the 2 had actually rode up to the top of the ridge. The 2 that didn't get caught rode up to the ridge. They noticed that the other 2 partners in their group had not caught up with them. They could not hear their snowmobiles. And so they decided to turn around and go back to go check and see what was going on. And they came around the corner and basically saw, this is one of the crown lines that was off of the Ben Lomond Peak area that was post control, or it was avalanche from the control work that they did getting into the rescue. So this was not actually the avalanche, but I think I have one picture of that in here in a little bit. But they came around the corner back into the Bailey Cabin Springs area, and bam, big avalanche. When they came around the corner, they before I go into that, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of just knowledge of where we're at. So Bailey Cabin Springs is right here. This trail here, that's the Cutler Ridge Trail. That Cutler Ridge Trail was also a trail that several of the rescuers hiked into the second, or actually it would have been day 3. That'll come in. I'll talk about that here in just a little bit. And then this red X line, this is where a snowcat came in that they used later on in the recovery. So this is the initial accident site right here. It's not quite in Bailey Cabin Springs, but it's really close. These 2 secondary avalanches right here are avalanches that were from the control work that they did a couple days after when they went into the avalanche after it snowed. And then all this large basin here, this big basin between Willard and Ben Lomond had naturally avalanched just later on in that cycle. So large avalanches going on in this piece. So this was where the incident command post. This is down that North Fork Park area. And yeah, so continue forward. There's a little bit bigger close up. So this map I pulled off, this is from SAR Topo or Cal Topo, really awesome mapping program that's out there. This kind of gives you a little bit of different perspective. Max, remind me, the purple and red, that's basically 38 to 40s. Yeah, 38 to 45 or 50 degree slope. Yellow is that 28 to 32 degree range. Orange is prime avalanche range right there, 36 through. So definitely not all avalanche terrain, but a good portion of avalanche terrain, and especially where they ended up triggering and getting buried in that avalanche, definitely avalanche terrain right here in this big terrain trap here. So any questions on that map? I might go back and reference it again. But so the first recovery, so that the initial call came in via cell phone from one of the 4 riders, 2 of the riders that were not buried. That came in around 3 o'clock, around 12 o'clock. And they had a search and rescue group that was up there around 3 o'clock that afternoon, and were able to get a helicopter flight into the area, and they were able to find one person unconscious and unresponsive, and got them out via medical helicopter. He was actually buried really close to a snowmobile. There's a picture of it coming up pretty quick. And then 9 days later, the second recovery was made. The second victim was found here, just below this group of trees, about 17 feet deep. That was 17 feet deep after they had used a snowcat multiple times to remove snow off the top because the probes were not hitting the ground. So they were using 10-foot long conduit piping, like you use for, like up in the rafters here for electrical work, 1/2-inch conduit. Those 10-foot pieces of conduit were not hitting the ground when the search rescuers were probing the ground. So put that into perspective. It's you guys really deeply buried. They used several dog teams, explosives. So as you guys have been around the Ogden Valley for a long time, might remember a guy who used to work for the Forest Service named Scott Layton. I know FIFO. Remember Scott. Scott and another person from the Forest Service used explosives. Actually, I think it was Tom Leonard from Snow Basin used explosives to make the area safe for these guys to get in and do some work. And they created several more avalanches through that time period. That one to the north and the one to the south occurred when they were doing control work. And then the ones all in that in the basin there, those were all natural avalanches that happened the night of the accident. So, yes.
I do have a question.
Yes.
Okay, so you may not know this. What was the snowpack like when this happened?
You know, Nicole, I've asked a lot of people, and so I talked to all my sources. So I got a couple sources. I'm happy to tell you who they all are. Jeff Malin, who was the sheriff search and rescue deputy at the time, and Kay Chapman, who was our patrol director at Powder Mountain for a long time, were my two main sources. And then I have a few others, but there is no record of snowpack related data or anything in the write-up or the write-up or Ben Lomond in any of the data that I could find. They are currently taking all the archived records and moving them into digital platform, and that's where it is on the Avalanche Center's website. It was really hard to actually find an actual location. There's a lot of conflicting information out there, but so what I do know is I was told by both people that it was a very snowy winter. A lot of snow, and the recent snow was that northwest wind had loaded a lot of the stuff. Kay Chapman told me that we had a lot of problems at Powder Mountain on the road because of that northwest.
Based off like a recent storm?
They were, yeah, they were thinking it was small storms with prolonged northwest wind loading that particularly this ridge line here, which would be a more westerly ridge line. So I didn't have any, there's no evidence out there that was a persistent weak layer or buried surface hoar or anything like that. It would just seem like it was a lot of new snow, short amount of time. 1995, might have to go back and do some looking in our data. So several dog teams were used. They had called in some dog teams from Alta and Snowbird. They used explosives. Ultimately, the rough estimate and size, they did things a lot differently than we do nowadays. We're really like detail oriented when it comes to size and classification and all that kind of stuff. But what I was told was the original avalanche was about 100 feet wide, 500 to 700 feet long, and 6 to 12 feet deep. And deep as in the crown profile was a max of 12 feet deep. So one of the problems with actually knowing how big it was they had an additional 2 feet of snow that came into the area the evening of the accident and then the following 2 days. So they were not able to go back into the accident for 3 days after that initial push because they were not able to get in there with the weather. So the debris was plus 20 feet in the gullies. This is a picture from the incident, and you can see that the gullies are filled with snow and obviously big terrain traps in here. They used 3 snowcats. They had that little tiny snowcat from the first picture. That's the search and rescue snowcat. They had 2 helicopters. One they rented from Classic Helicopters in Ogden or Bountiful, and then they used a myriad of Life Flight or Air Med to shuttle rescuers in and out of the area. The other two snowcats they used, I think one was the county hall cat. The other one was another county grooming cat. And then they used a cat from Nordic Valley that they brought over to help excavate the snow. Roughly 60 personnel over those 9 days from 5 different agencies: Tremont County, Box Elder County, Davis County, Weber County, Powder Mountain, Nordic Valley, the Forest Service. A bunch of those folks came over and helped. So what made this avalanche particularly deadly? When I talked about what do people mostly die from in avalanches? What's the number one related? It's trauma, and then asphyxiation, right? So for the individual that was found 9 days later, buried up here, that was trauma. Some of the photos that I have that definitely not going to share are pretty brutal. It's a pretty interesting piece to look into and think that you would be pushed through that batch of trees by tons of snow coming down the mountain with you, with your snowmobile. That's the deputy right there. His name is Jeff Malin. He was the incident commander through the whole thing. That's Jeff standing next to those trees in the hole that they found the second victim in. I believe that was Mr. Sutherland. So, let's see. So the other thing that made the avalanche really deadly, just the sheer amount of snow. I mean, I think that's the other piece. The sheer amount of snow and the amount of time, logistics it takes to get into an area like that when you only have helicopter access. So what makes it particularly difficult? One, the vast amount of snow. Two, the extended time frame. One of the searchers that I interviewed basically told me by the time they got everybody into the site, it was time to bring them back out. So think about that. You're putting 3 or 4 people on a helicopter every flight in. By the time they got the 60 people in, it was time to bring them back out. Because of daylight, shorter day hours, that kind of stuff, it's a long time. Oh, shoot. Thanks, Nick. Oh, thanks, Max. Was that you, Max? Man, you're a pal. All right. So there's a lot of things that made this recovery really difficult. And I can't honestly say that I've ever been on an avalanche recovery where I've had to probe deeper than my 300 centimeter probe. That just like blows my mind. But the fact that they had to use snowcats to come in and push snow away to find bodies, that's crazy. Yeah, Rich.
So did they remove 8 feet of snow before they probed the 17 person?
Did they remove 8 feet of snow before they probed the person? I don't know. I don't know for sure, Rich. But they said they had taken several passes with the snowcat to move snow in order to probe. So, yeah, sorry, I can't answer that exactly. So if you guys notice right here, what does that look like? Huh? Yeah, snowmobile part. That's a ski. That's the ski of a snowmobile. That is the first person that was. That's the location of the first person that was recovered the initial day at around, I think they said 3 o'clock. But that's where that first initial person was buried. So yeah, that's big. This big piece of rock right here. Big terrain trap below it. So. Any questions here? All right. So what were the challenges? I've already talked about a lot of them. You know, the extensive amount of time it takes to get people in and out of a scene, short time of hours. This is the Ben Lomond area. I hesitate to even put pictures like this on here, but they're good talking points. But if you were to see this on my computer, it would be Crown Line all the way around here to Willard Peak and across. That particular area, large avalanches within that operational period, the first 2 operational periods. When they came up, they saw that and they were like, "Oh, we need to get people to come throw explosives in here. There's no way we're going in here." So, that's the old Life Flight helicopter or actually I think that's Air Med. They were using them to help load people in and out of that area. Yeah. So what can we all learn from this? Yeah, get training, right? Get your training, get your avalanche training, know what the forecast is. How many of you guys were backcountry skiing or skiing around the Wasatch in the 90s? Okay, how did you get the avalanche forecast? Beep, 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 right? You listen to the line. Hey, this is Drew Hardesty with the Utah Avalanche Forecasting Center. or Bruce, right? Good, or Evelyn, depending on the morning. I remember listening to that phone call. Like that was my phone call when I came around the dam at the canyon. It was like that was my thing. I just pushed the button, listened to it, driving up the canyon. That was what I did. That's how you got the avalanche forecast back in the day. So how do we get the avalanche forecast now? Yeah, you go on the Google machine. Oh, look, my light's on. Go on the Google machine and you can get the avalanche forecast emailed to you. You can get it online off the intranets, and it's pretty easy to get nowadays, right? Technology's at your fingertips. I can't honestly say that either two individuals would be alive if they had beacons or shovels or probes that day, if all four people in the party had those. The first person that was buried was only a couple feet deep. I think the initial report was maybe 6, laying near his snowmobile. So he probably would have been found fairly easy. But I can't honestly say that he would be alive. If he was drug over that set of rocks, or if he was pushed through any of those trees or ran over by his snowmobile on the way down, there's just as good a chance that he would have been dead because of trauma anyways, right? But definitely something to think about. So how do we learn? We now have this awesome technology, these beacons and shovels and probes, and places at Powder Mountain and Snow Basin that we can go practice these skills, right? I'm going to put in plug in right now. Saturday up at Powder Mountain, they're doing the patrol is doing a beacon clinic in the beacon park. A beacon party in the clinic at the top of Hidden Lake. What time are we starting, Nicole? 11 to 1. So if you have a beacon, you want to learn how to use it, or if you want to practice your skills, come on up. But what else can we learn from this? So one of the things that I'll get to you just a second. One of the things that I personally took out of this was we've evolved immensely over the years in terms of avalanche searching. This is a technique that used to be done, was trenching. If you can imagine trenching large amounts of snow and how much time and effort it takes with these big, large grain snow shovels, we're now down to smaller, more compact, lightweight shovels, and we have this really cool technique of starting downhill from where we get our beacon signal, from where we get our probe, and we shovel into the snow, right? Instead of digging downhill into the snow to create just a hole. So there's all these things we've evolved in training, we've evolved in technology over the years. That's what some of the things I pick out of this. You had a question. What if you don't have a beacon for the beacon party? Okay, there you go. We'll have loners or demos. Yes, Kim. Yeah, so the dogs actually didn't find any of them. The dogs had indicated on a lot of spots, but none of them actually were the spots where they were found. So they were all found by probe line. Yeah, so they had the snow. They took the snowcat, moved the snow out of the way, and then they would go back over the terrain. So one of the things the reason why it led them to where they were for the second person was the snowcat unearthed a shoe or a boot. The boot had actually been ripped off the person's foot, and they used that boot to use that obvious clues, like working up a terrain piece to find it. So, yeah. Yes.
So you mentioned the first people. What about the other two?
The other two people were fine. They rode up onto the avalanche. They looked around for a little bit and decided that they were going to be no help, and they needed to go get other people to get them help. So. I think the other thing that we can learn from this is we have a duty and a responsibility to learn from these incidents. I'm a big proponent of learning from unfortunate accidents. And there's a few of them out there. There's, how many guys, Rich, were you around in 2007? Were you patrolling? Were you patrolling at Basin in 07? So this particular accident in 07, I was not at Basin, but this was a near miss. A person buried up to their head or up to their eyes, left hand sticking out in the Hells Canyon area. Escape or going out through the ski area boundary. This one, I remember this one very well. I've talked about this several times. This is the Smedley accident in March of 2005. Multiple day event. Weather pushed us out of the scene. Multiple days. Increasing avalanche danger pushed us out of the area multiple days. Not knowing where the last scene point was probably delayed a recovery several days, this being the burial site. We spent a lot of time down here probing in the toe of the debris because we didn't know where that last scene point was. Partner came back and said, the last time I saw them was right here. And that was basically, they flew a dog up to the top, dog alerted, like as they got out of the helicopter, went straight into the burial site, and we had Mr. Smedley back to his family by 3 o'clock that day. So, no. Yeah.
I think it's worth mentioning that, like, in 1995, dog training wasn't the same.
Yep.
And there weren't like 5 dogs. There were probably only a couple of dogs.
Yeah, there was 2. It was Lucy, and I don't remember the other dog's name, but they were like the only 2 dogs in the Wasatch. So, yeah, dog training was definitely not the same, Rich. I would agree with that. I think you use the dogs we have nowadays on an incident like that, I think it would be a different outcome for sure. January 24th, 2010, Todd Bell exited the Snow Basin boundary out of No Name through Hells Canyon. Todd started an avalanche, and he was buried in that avalanche and recovered several hours later. At the very same time the Todd Bell incident was going on, there was another incident, and that was in Coldwater Canyon, where a group of skiers and snowboarders had exited the No Name gate, heading towards what they thought was Hells Canyon, but went out the fakey ridge line and got dropped into Coldwater Canyon. Fortunately for those individuals, unfortunately for those folks, they triggered numerous avalanches on their way out, trying to get back into the area boundary, and they were later picked up on the ridge line by Life Flight. 4 separate picks. I believe there was 4 people in that group. All while this was going on, just a ridge line away. Craziest day. I think that's the craziest day in my patrolling history. Rich, you were up there. Were you around for that one? No.
No.
I get you guys. I get you and Hanson confused. I forget you and Hanson. I get you and Hanson confused. So, yeah, by far like one of the craziest days I think of my patrolling career. So, March 4th, 2015, Hells Canyon, another similar situation. You remember this one? You were around. I wasn't there that well. I was there that day. I was in the parking lot. But Blake Ford and his partner exited the boundary, were trying to get back inbounds into the no-name terrain, triggered an avalanche, and took a ride down into the bottom of hills. I don't know if you guys have noticed in all of these slides, but there's or in all these avalanches, with the exception of that first one, all of these avalanches required the use of explosives to go in and make the terrain safe for the rescuers to go into. That takes time. They're not just diving into the terrain and picking people out and putting them on a helicopter and getting them to the hospital. These are all recovery efforts. And I'll give bonus points to anybody but Max and Nicole that can name this one right here. Oh, belay strap. Does anybody know what accident this was? Anybody but Max or Michelle, or Max or Nicole? Max, do you know what it is?
No, we don't know what it is.
1985, I believe.
It's 3 or 5.
It's 3 or 5. Good job. There you go. So this is right outside. This is right outside the Powder Country Woody's World sign line. I know. This picture right here, because I have better pictures too. This is just one that I thought this is out of a book called Snowy Torrents. Snowy Torrents, this picture from Snowy Torrents, Snowy Torrents is a publication of avalanche fatalities and rescues in North America. There happens to be no data there's no Snowy Torrents in the 90s, which is why I had such a hard time trying to find the information for Cutler Basin. So I'm hoping to turn a lot of this data over to the folks that do Snowy Torrents, and hopefully we can get it in the system, because this is the folks that I interviewed for this stuff. These are folks that have been out of the business for 10, 15, 20, 30 years probably. And the only way that we can go forward and make ourselves better is that we learn from these things. We take the mistakes of others, we learn from them, and we go forward and we don't make those mistakes again. So this is the Beacon slide path. This is just outside the Woody's World boundary at Powder Mountain. Beacon, who it's the last name of the individual that was caught and buried and killed in that slide path, and his friend Daniels were skiing this. It was about the mid 80s. And Kay Chapman, the individual who was the patrol director around for the Cutler Basin accident, was actually on scene this day and was a part of this rescue. So, yeah, not a common place, but it's definitely outside the area boundary where we don't do control work. So, yeah. Yes?
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
With the advent of beacons and all these other technologies that we have access to in order to keep ourselves safer and make ourselves more accessible to recovery and rescue and some of those things, do you feel like all of that gives not everyone obviously, but people a false sense of security?
Sure. You remember, were you here for Corey's talk last week? So he talked about human factors, right? So I think a couple of the terminology pieces that he used in either facets from Ian McCammon speak well to that. And that could be that expert halo. That could be that social facilitation. That could be the acceptance, right? I think there's a lot of things that related to the way that things have changed with technology. We potentially would take more risks because of it. I hope that that's not the case, but for sure. Does that answer your question? Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Any online questions? No. Oh, man.
Brandon, I think you did a good job.
Oh, thanks, Nicole. So if thanks. So I'll just put a plug in next year if I'm doing this talk again. We might be talking about this incident here. I'm going to do some digging on this one. I might be talking about this one. There were a couple other incidents that I uncovered while I was doing my research for this one. There were a couple of fatalities in the Willard Peak, the Willard Basin area. There's a lot out there that happened in the 90s and the early 2000s that I would like to talk more about. And hopefully you guys are around next year and come join us for that talk too. So if there's any other questions, I'll let it go for the evening, and you guys enjoy the rest of your night.
All right, thanks again, Brandon. Last chance for raffle tickets. Everyone here gets a free raffle ticket. Come on over to the table. Thank you, Gear 30, giving away some swag tonight. Skins.
Since I came to know you, baby, I've been telling you how sweet you are. I've been telling you how good you are. Now I want you to try to tell me how I look. Tell me, tell me, tell me, tell me, tell me.